It was me, Elton, Dionne Warwick, and Elizabeth Taylor.
That was like
And that very
1993.
first year,
Oh,
we raised $3 million. And it's been going on and on and
Ever
on since then.
since.
And it, you know, and Elton's getting ready. He says he's gonna retire. I'm gonna beat him up. You know, he said, you ain't going nowhere. You know, that's what I'm
Well, you
saying.
can take over.
She won America's heart at just 8 years old, only to be segregated from her new white friends seconds after claiming her first trophy. She'd later lose $60,000 in one night to a secret addiction, sue her own son to protect her name, and still walk on stage the next day with gospel calm and velvet grace. Gladys Knight may be crowned the Empress of Soul, but behind that crown is a woman full of twists, triumphs, and quiet storms. But did you know which legendary entertainer personally mentored a young Gladys, teaching her how to sing a ballad correctly? Drop your guess in the comments. We'll reveal the answer a little later. Stay tuned for the midnight train that redefined her legacy, the restaurant scandal that nearly derailed her family, and the comeback that proved she was never just a pip in the background. But to truly understand this queen of the stage, we have to start at the very beginning, where her story takes some surprising turns you won't want to miss. Early life. Atlanta, Georgia, 1950s. Back when Sundays meant polished shoes, church choirs, and the warm, familiar smell of fried chicken drifting from every window. For Gladys Maria Knight, born in 1944 into a tight-knit black middle-class family, music was woven into everyday life like sweet tea at supper. Her father, a postal worker, and her mother, a nurse's aide, filled their home with discipline, faith, and the sound of gospel. At just 4 years old, Gladys was already lifting hearts at Mount Moriah Baptist Church. But it was her mother, Elizabeth, who truly spotted the gift. She'd hum Nat King Cole's Too Young and coach young Gladys on the phrasing, smoothing syllables, coaxing emotion. That song, and her mother's guidance, would win Gladys her first big moment. Ted Mack's Original Amateur Hour, 1952. She was only 8. She won. And then the applause turned cold. When the photo op came, the white children she'd befriended backstage were pulled away by their parents, refusing to stand next to her. The host posed with her instead. It was a silent lesson in prejudice, delivered before she even hit double digits. Still, her spirit didn't break. That same year, with her brother Bubba, sister Brenda, and 2 cousins, she formed the Pips, a family group named after cousin James Pip Woods. They played churches, backyard parties, and even Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.'s fundraisers. Even as her fame grew, her mother kept a tight rein. No late nights, no suggestive lyrics, no Chitlin Circuit temptations. We were allowed to be children, Gladys later said, not try to be grown. And yet, as the stages got bigger and the lights brighter, childhood gave way to sacrifice, and the cost of that spotlight would come fast. Nonetheless, it was this early blend of praise and pain, faith and fame that set the foundation for a career unlike any other. Career and success. By the early 60s, Gladys Knight was no longer little Gladys from church talent shows. She was a young mother with a velvet voice and a contract. Her first big hit came in 1961 with Every Beat of My Heart, but just as the spotlight beckoned, she stepped back to raise her children. That quiet choice, rooted in the family-first values instilled by her mother, would echo through her career. Fame could wait, but the heart came first. In 1966, Gladys Knight and the Pips joined Motown. But Motown wasn't exactly waiting with open arms. Tucked beneath giants like Diana Ross, Stevie Wonder, and Marvin Gaye, they were considered second-tier talent. When the group's revved-up version of I Heard It Through the Grapevine became Motown's best-selling single of 1967, it wasn't just a win, it was a statement. They'd reworked the shelved song themselves, even borrowing Smokey Robinson's studio time. Their reward, a hit. Their penalty. Diana Ross allegedly had Gladys removed from a tour for overshadowing her performances. That wound left a mark. So in 1973, tired of being boxed in, they left Motown for Buddha Records, a risky move. But it paid off. Midnight Train to Georgia soared to #1, capturing the ache of love and sacrifice in a way only Gladys could deliver. It was gospel, soul, and heartbreak all wrapped in velvet, and it earned her a Grammy. Behind the scenes, though, fault lines grew. By 1989, tensions with the Pips, especially her brother Bubba, led to a painful split. At 45, she launched her solo career. No group, no label politics, just Gladys. Yet even as the applause rolled in, it wasn't career highs that defined her most. It was how she lived through them that truly revealed who she was. Still beyond the charts and curtain calls, it was Gladys's off-stage rituals, quiet battles, and soulful simplicity that gave her success its deepest meaning. Faith, wellness, and the real Gladys. For all the glitter that came with being the Empress of Soul, Gladys Knight never fully gave herself over to the glamour. Behind the scenes, she lived a life that would surprise those expecting diva antics. Her mornings often begin with prayer, not press. Her strongest rituals aren't red carpet routines, they're spiritual disciplines rooted in her conversion to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the late 90s. While some of her peers turned to flash and indulgence, Gladys turned to faith and gospel choirs. She even founded her own choir, Saints Unified Voices, which went on to win a Grammy for its gospel album, One Voice. Not bad for someone who once packed arenas singing about heartbreak, now singing hymns with as much power but far less spotlight. Her church community became a second home. The pulpit, not just the stage, became her sanctuary. After her mother passed away from complications related to diabetes, Gladys became a passionate advocate for healthy living. She radically changed her diet, started power walking, and co-authored At Home with Gladys Knight, a cookbook meets wellness manual packed with recipes, health tips, and soul food makeovers. It wasn't just about food, it was about reclaiming control of her body and life after years of addiction and grief. Cornbread over caviar. Gladys doesn't like being called a diva. In fact, she's publicly rejected the term. Her preferred label? Just cornbread. That's how she sees herself, warm, simple, nourishing. She'd rather be in a kitchen stirring collard greens than getting fitted for a ball gown. In interviews, she's laughed about how she enjoys watching the Food Network more than her own music videos. Cooking isn't just a pastime, it became therapy. During her quiet recovery from a decade-long gambling addiction, a struggle mentioned earlier and explored more fully in the next section, she found peace in preparing meals, following recipes, and grounding herself in the rhythms of home life. Pre-show prayers and stage miracles. Even during her Las Vegas residencies, where she headlined theaters bearing her name, Gladys never saw herself as above the audience. On nights when illness stole her voice, she refused to cancel. Instead, she prayed. "God sings for me when I ask him to," she once said. Her pre-show routine is a quirky blend of herbal tea, vocal warm-ups, and whispered gratitude. And time and again, that faith delivered. Her voice would return just in time. This wasn't superstition. It was a deep belief that her gift wasn't hers alone. She stewarded it, and she honored it. Dancing through darkness. When Gladys appeared on Dancing with the Stars, many viewers saw it as a fun detour, a legend trying something new. But for Gladys, it was something else, a joyful rebellion against age, grief, and expectation. After decades of stoic grace and personal loss, she embraced movement as medicine. She said it reconnected her with her body and brought back a kind of joy that had been missing. She didn't win the show, but she won something better. Freedom in her own skin, after a lifetime of carrying the weight of others' expectations. Laughter, grandkids, and living well. At home, Gladys is the exact opposite of the polished stage queen. Friends describe her as goofy, generous, and deeply maternal. She spoils her grandkids shamelessly, sings while cooking, and cracks jokes about aging. "People think I've had surgery," she once laughed, "but it's God, good food, and clean living." Her social media is sprinkled with encouragement, scripture, and the kind of grounded wisdom that only comes from surviving the storm. She doesn't post to be adored, she posts to uplift. And while her home life appears calm, it hasn't been without controversy. As mentioned earlier, her decision to sue her own son to remove her name from a restaurant chain was emotionally devastating, but it showed just how fiercely she guards her integrity. Yet even in those tough moments, Gladys Knight chose dignity over drama, peace over pride. Nevertheless, if you really want to understand the woman behind the velvet voice, you have to step beyond the music and into the messy, beautiful world of her relationships, where love, loss, loyalty, and betrayal shaped her just as much as any song ever did. Relationships and connections. Gladys Knight's relationships have been as soulful and at times as painful as her music. At just 16, she married her high school sweetheart, James "Jimmy" Newman. Their love was real, but the world was unkind. While touring with the Pips, she suffered a miscarriage alone in a hotel room, a loss she carried quietly for years. Jimmy later battled drug addiction and left the family, yet Gladys still referred to him as the love of her life. That kind of deep, complex loyalty never left her. Her second marriage to Barry Hankerson brought more turbulence. They had a son, Shanga, but split bitterly, ending in a painful custody battle. Gladys reportedly spent over $1 million trying to find her son after he was taken during the dispute. Years later, Shanga would go on to betray her trust in a very different way. But more on that soon. By the time she married motivational speaker Les Brown in the 90s, she hoped for peace. Instead, the union fizzled quickly. But at last, in William McDowell, her husband since 2001, Gladys found stability, mutual respect, and a shared faith that held through the storms. Romantically, it's been a road of heartbreak and healing, but family always remained at her core. Her brother Bubba was a constant musical partner even as business tensions strained their bond. And when her eldest son, Jimmy III, died unexpectedly at 37, it shattered her, but also deepened her devotion to her remaining children and grandchildren. Her friendships, too, told a story of love. Patti LaBelle called her one of the best hearts, and Gladys quietly helped bring the Jackson 5 to Motown, never asking for credit. Nonetheless, behind those soulful duets and tight-knit ties was a woman learning that trust, just like money, must be carefully guarded. Income and net worth. As of 2025, Gladys Knight's net worth is estimated between $8 million and $28 million, depending on the source. Most of her wealth stems from decades of touring, record sales, and royalties from timeless hits like Midnight Train to Georgia and That's What Friends Are For. Her solo albums, Motown-era classics, and licensing deals have kept her income steady even in later years. But the road to financial stability wasn't smooth. In the 1980s, her secret gambling addiction, revealed much later, cost her dearly, with one night at the baccarat table totaling $60,000 in losses. Then came the lawsuit against her own son over the mismanaged Chicken and Waffles restaurant chain, where over $1 million in unpaid taxes put her brand at risk.
But this week, Gladys Knight went to federal court, suing her son, Shanga Hankerson, who owned the restaurants and other operators of it, after state investigators say he stole taxes collected from customers.
Thankfully, Vegas residencies and a savvy memoir deal, reportedly landing a $500,000 advance, helped rebuild her financial footing. Yet the real story of her wealth lives not just in bank accounts, but in the homes she built and the ones she lost. Real estate. Gladys Knight's real estate story isn't about opulence, it's about meaning. Since 2004, she's called Fairview, North Carolina home, where she shares a serene 20-acre property with her husband, William McDowell. Surrounded by rolling pastures and long-range mountain views, it's not just a home, it's a retreat. The farmhouse-style estate reflects the quiet faith and grounded life Gladys has cultivated in her later years, far from the chaos of the spotlight. Before Fairview, she lived in a Mediterranean-style estate in Las Vegas, purchased in 1997 for $695,000. The 6,500-square-foot property included 6 bedrooms, a pool, and a private recording studio. It wasn't just a luxury, it was a love letter to her mother, whom she bought the house for. It served as a gathering place for family, music, and milestones. She sold it in 2018 for $720,000, closing a chapter filled with both joy and loss. Then there was her beloved vacation home at Panguitch Lake, Utah. A peaceful escape for family getaways, the cabin tragically burned down, reportedly due to a chimney issue. The loss was deeply personal, a rare public glimpse into how fragile her sanctuaries could be. She also once lived in Detroit during her Motown years, in a modest house on LaSalle Avenue, proof that even as her fame rose, her home life stayed grounded. Nonetheless, while her houses tell of healing, heartbreak, and homecomings, what Gladys doesn't own says just as much as what she does. Vehicles and cars. For someone who's traveled the world, Gladys Knight has kept surprisingly quiet when it comes to vehicles. There are no flashy sports cars in her driveway, no Rolls-Royce stories from red carpets. In fact, there's no public record of what kind of car she drives at all. And that fits the woman who calls herself cornbread. She's more about comfort than chrome. Motorbikes? Not her scene. Gladys has never been linked to the motorcycle lifestyle, and you're unlikely to find her revving down the Pacific Coast Highway in leather and shades. Private jets? While she's surely flown in them during the peak of her touring years, there's no indication she ever owned one. Her focus was always on getting to the people, not on traveling like royalty, even if the stage treated her like one. As for yachts and helicopters, there's no evidence of either. Not even a borrowed boat for a photo op. She's never chased status through possessions. If anything, she's spent her life showing that true luxury is peace, and the real vehicle worth investing in is the one that carries your soul through storms. Yet while she may have kept her garage humble, her life is still very much in motion, and today, at 80 years old, she's proving that the journey isn't over. Current lifestyle. At 80 years old, Gladys Knight is still center stage, only now she's doing it with even more soul and even less to prove. In 2025, she's co-headlining the Queen's Tour alongside Chaka Khan, Patti LaBelle, and Stephanie Mills, delivering powerhouse performances that feel more like testimony than entertainment. She's also balancing solo dates, including a rescheduled show in Orlando, proving that even a recent flu and hospitalization couldn't keep her down for long. Her fans got a raw, beautiful glimpse of her mindset on her birthday. 80 years of life, love, faith, fun, lessons, blessings, a reflection that reads like a hymn. And in a full-circle moment, she'll be portrayed in the upcoming Michael Jackson biopic, an acknowledgement of her quiet role in music history, including her early push to get the Jackson 5 signed to Motown. And there you have it, Gladys Knight in all her grace, grit, and gospel. Let us know in the comments what surprised you most about her journey. Hit like, subscribe, and check out our next video for more timeless legends and their unforgettable lives.